Welcome to Air Emergencies Simply Explained. In today's video we talk about Helios Airways Flight 522. August 14, 2005. Helios Airways Flight 522, a Boeing 737, takes off from Larnaca, Cyprus to Athens, Greece. On board are 115 passengers, 4 crew members and 2 pilots. Minutes into the flight, as the aircraft passes through 12,000 feet, an alarm sounds in the cockpit. It is the takeoff configuration alarm. The pilots are confused. The takeoff configuration alarm warns pilots that their aircraft is not ready for takeoff. However, the aircraft is already in flight. The pilots contact their airline's operations center and informs them that their takeoff configuration warning is on. An airline engineer comes over the radio and attempts to help the pilots. The master caution alarm also sounds off. The captain believes that several of his systems are overheating. In the cabin, oxygen masks drop, but pilots are unaware of this. The engineer asks the pilots if their pressurization switch is set to auto, however the captain instead asks the engineer regarding the location of equipment cooling circuit breakers. The engineer tells the captain that the equipment cooling circuit breakers are located behind the captain's seat. He then asks the captain if he could see them. However, there is no reply. Air traffic controllers attempt to contact the aircraft several times. However, there is no response from Flight 522. The aircraft eventually enters Greek airspace. With the possibility of terrorism involved, the Greek Air Force sends 2 F-16s to intercept the Boeing 737. One of the F-16s does a visual check of the aircraft while the other positions himself in a shooting position behind the aircraft. The F-16 pilot doing the visual check reports that he can see the first officer slump on his seat, while there is no sight of the captain. He also reports passengers in their seats but that none of them react to his presence. But then the F-16 pilot sees someone moving in the cockpit and reports this to air traffic control. Controllers again attempt to make contact with the aircraft but still get no response. The person in the cockpit also does not seem to notice the presence of the F-16. Suddenly the Boeing 737 begins descending. The F-16s continue to follow the aircraft. As Flight 522 descends, the person in the cockpit appears to notice the F-16 pilot for the first time. However, no radio messages come from the Boeing 737. Helios Airways Flight 522 continues its descent until it crashes into a hill near the village of Grammatiko in East Attica, Greece. Everyone on board is killed. Investigators discovered that maintenance engineers performed a pressurization check on the aircraft the night before the crash. In order to do this test, engineers switched the aircraft's pressurization mode from auto to manual. This was done so that engineers could manually pressurize the aircraft for the test. The aircraft was eventually cleared to fly. However, the engineers failed to return the pressurization mode from manual to auto. The pilots also failed to notice the mistake. Because of this, the aircraft did not automatically pressurize during the climb. The alarm that sounded in the cockpit was not the takeoff configuration alarm but rather the pressurization alarm. Both alarms sounded similar. The master caution alarm sounded to warn the pilots that the oxygen masks in the cabin have dropped. However, the captain misinterpreted this as overheating of aircraft systems. When the engineer asked the captain if the pressurization switch was set to auto, the captain instead asked for the location of his equipment cooling circuit breakers. The captain likely passed out while he was checking the circuit breakers, which was why the F-16 pilot could not see him. Because the aircraft's oxygen supply only lasts 12 minutes, everyone else also passed out. The man that the F-16 pilot saw was later discovered to be one of the flight attendants that survived using a portable oxygen bottle. He attempted to save the aircraft after failing to revive one of the pilots. However, the plane eventually ran out of fuel. Several Helios Airways employees were eventually charged with manslaughter. The airline itself also ceased operations a year after the crash. That is it for today's video. I hope you learned something new. Please consider subscribing and hitting that notification button for more simply explained air emergency videos.